Hi there. Well, it's good to see everybody still sitting where they are and able to watch YouTube videos. And I really appreciate the comments. I'm just not that convinced of any outcome. What I'm doing is I'm piecing together the scenarios that have been outlined by the different parties in the past. So US has repeatedly said that if it's stretched out into a conflict with North Korea, then it will use nuclear weapons, and North Korea has repeatedly threatened using nuclear weapons. So that will be a nuclear exchange if it happens. And it's now building up. There's nothing to show that there's any way, relenting, or there's some diplomacy going on that prevents a conflict. And the pattern that I put on top of that is simply the dependencies, the real existential dependencies of these countries, of China mainly. And of course, North Korea depends existentially on China for its fuel and for its food. So if China wanted it to back down, it could simply force it to back down, because how can you fight if you don't have food to feed your army? Okay, once again, you can have a nuclear exchange with 5 people behind the controls and millions of people dying. But I don't believe that's the way it works. I don't believe that. And there's a funny thing about the Koreans or the Korean Peninsula, is that it's populated by Japanese people in the 1930s or something like that, early 19th century, which I don't really know what it means, but it might mean that China doesn't really care about these people too much, because they have been in a feud with Japan for a long time, because Japan have been invading China and Manchurian wars and all that stuff, and it was horrendous. People were skinned alive. So they don't really like each other that much. But I can't really, I only know that these are the elements that have been the puzzle pieces that have been put on the table before. And there's now some new pieces being created, and if you put the puzzle together, you get a big problem for the world. I think it's, another topic that I wanted to address is that it's just so clear how linked money and energy are. Because just ask yourself this question: if you weren't able to buy gas, diesel, gasoline, oil, or coal for that matter, or any type of fuel with your money, and you couldn't buy a product that had used any fuel, or you would, the people that were producing whatever you are using would not be able to use their money to buy fuel. What would that money be worth? If it was impossible for anybody for a truck driver to buy fuel with the dollars or the euros that he has. He has like all the money in the world, but he can't buy fuel with it. What would he do? What would anybody do if there is no ability to purchase energy with your money? There will be nothing going on, nothing at all. And that's, I think, the key. And because, are you ever paying back energy? No, you're never paying back energy. The only way that people are giving back energy is using solar panels and all that stuff, and then they earn some money, which they can then spend on energy again, exactly the same amount. See, there's a hard link, and like Jim Willie and other people were talking about, or the people at Financial Times. I'm sorry, I'm mixing them up, but yeah, well, producers are fleeing into oil futures because that's a very good hedge. Well, it is, of course. I think gold and silver are not necessarily helpful to have. It is only helpful to have if there's some economy somewhere, because then you can use it. And of course, if you can buy land with that stuff, so if somebody still wants it. But if you buy some barrels of oil, you are buying a consumable, which you have to keep until you use it, and then it's gone. So that's not a very good thing. But as you consume it, you can, of course, keep yourself alive, much better than using gold and silver. I don't really know, but that's really the key. Ask yourself, what could be done if you couldn't buy energy with your money, and how are you able to secure the fact that that energy is available to buy with your money? You are not. See, I think that's a responsibility of people to realize that energy comes from somewhere. We use it, but we have no control over it whatsoever. I personally don't. I have no way of imagining how I could, that's just off limits. I go to the gas station and talk to the guy and say, did you buy enough gas to put in your tank so all our cars in our region can drive? And we can still spend our money on the gasoline in your tank gas station? No, that doesn't occur to anybody to do that. But it is, let's say, the most important thing in your life to be able to do that. Can I buy heating oil? Can I buy coal? Can I have gas to cook on? It's the most important thing, and we just don't care about it because, well, it's a hidden thing. It's the key behind the value of money, of fiat currency, and it's the key behind the economies. And because there's a resource shortage growing, there's now a war on, which is about destroying the economies and destroying their ability to buy that fuel and to have that economy. And the people that realize that will move to their own sources of energy, and if you do so, you're just out of the game, but you're also out of trouble. You have complete wealth. It's amazing how much energy we basically waste, because I looked into it, and maybe this is a boring story, I'm sorry about that, but we use in Holland about 20 times as much energy as we perceive to be using. So if I look at my gas and electricity meter, I see a certain number, but my actual daily use of energy is 20 times what I see on my meters. Why? That's to keep the society going, to keep the commercial market going so I can shop, to keep all these buildings alive and these lights out in the street, and keep the logistics from getting the vegetables from Morocco and all that stuff going for me, which I think is a ridiculous waste and a ridiculous conclusion, because one of these reports, they did a very thorough analysis of the energy use per person, per capita, said that the energy use had doubled since 95. Well, that means there's just a lot of bullshit, like a big amusement park going on, and nobody's visiting it apparently, because I don't know about it. I don't know where all that energy is going. And that also, once again, it's per capita. So everybody that works in the economy still uses 20 times as much energy as he perceives to be using. So if you go to your office, of course you don't use 20 times as much energy as you use when you're at home. So somewhere else, energy is wasted. Energy is used it's just, to what benefit? Who benefits? It's not for your food production. That energy use is actually quite low. It's all for moving around, lighting places that aren't being used, building buildings that nobody visits, or that you visit but at a loss, that has no real productive value. All these unproductive things. And you have to admit or agree with me that if you go back a few million years, which of course is not what we want to do, but if you would, then you know that first of all you eat something that you find, and that's it. You keep yourself warm, which doesn't cost any energy if you have a bear skin or something like that, and that's it. So it's ridiculous. It's not a technological progress. It is, once again, and I said it before, there's a machine going on that tries to maximize the use of fossil fuels, because people make money off of that, and they want to spend this in this fantastic wasteful amusement park, which we call the economy, which is a complete albatross. It is the economy. If you look at these numbers, the economy is the definition of waste. There's no bigger way to waste energy and therefore wealth than the economy. So I've come to a conclusion that of course this cannot be sustained. That's quite clear. And that's why we have all this trouble. And I coined a new term, which is the Agoracentric model of the economy. And I think that will be a very important one, which means that you start with autonomous small communities, or you basically autonomize communities based on a core village or a core locality where there's some infrastructure, like a village, exactly like a village, with a village square, which is of course, square is agora in Greek, I believe, and from that you build. Just like, if you ever read the little book that Mao wrote about guerrilla warfare, he says, well, every guerrilla troop has to have so many guns, so many water bottles, so many this, so many that. You just go and take each of these agoras, which a limited basically radius of territory around it, which it should control and supply and serve. And you say, well, this agora, this town, needs to have so many water heaters, so many solar panels, so many heat storage, so many electricity storage. It has to have a baker, a butcher. It has to have some land around it. Maybe it got some vertical gardens, planting all kinds of vegetables for people, using solar power, etc., etc. You can go on and on and on. And then you build a little spaceship type infrastructure, local infrastructure, where you don't need a long-range logistics, where you don't need long-range fuel supply at all, zero, because it can't happen anymore after a certain time. And you become independent as a community. If you're a member of it, you of course have to do some work every now and then. Doesn't mean that you have to go back to the Stone Age. I think that's complete nonsense. You can have internet and you can travel wherever you want, but you can have a rail system or something like that connecting these things, and all these rail systems can also be solar powered, so you don't have to have lots of money to do that. And you can cooperate and etc. But the whole concept is that you make sure that you know what you need, because right now the economy makes that everybody ignores what they actually need. And I have written one piece about it, it's in Dutch of course, about the energy use per person, which is I think shocking and wasteful. And I will write a series about technologies that I think are fitting into this pattern, where you can easily locally generate whatever you need for the local population. And if everybody does that locally, then there's no problem whatsoever. Plus that in terms of work it takes to get it done, to bring it about, it's also doable. That still doesn't solve the problem of climate change, but it does also, of course, erode and destroy economics, or the economical model as we know it. Because there's basically nothing more destructive as a global economy. And economics there's basically not a bigger lie than economics. If you see how dependent people are on it, and how utterly hijacked their freedom is by it, and how wasteful it is, it's clearly a moronic concept to have it. Anyway, thanks for listening, and see you next time.